Hello and welcome to episode 38 of the Dentist Realist podcast. I am Dr. Ryder Waldron and I am joined as usual by Dr. Marcus D. Neff and Dr. Troy Stevens. Troy, how's it going tonight? Any new injuries to report?
Nope, I've been injury-free for, two and a half weeks almost now, so I'm feeling...
Well done.
I'm feeling like the downturn, the bad luck is over.
Famous last words.
Yeah,
sure.
Until next week. Yep.
Marcus, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right, Inge. Just enjoyed a nice long Memorial Day weekend. It was good.
Yeah, we're
Had
back.
Monday off, so...
We're back after a long holiday weekend, and we were excited to get back to dentistry.
Yeah.
Feels good. It feels good.
Yeah. It was awesome. Everybody's, getting their teeth knocked out. I had a 21-year-old this morning that broke his number 9, and he just wanted me to take it blankety blank out because it was hurting him. I won't repeat the words he said.
And did you? Were you able to get that?
No, negative. I'm not taking it. I told him, I says, dude, you don't want tooth out. He says, well, it hurts. And I says, well, let's get you out of pain, and then I can guarantee that you're not going to be wanting it out.
Yeah.
But, 21 years old, and he wanted to stinking tooth broken out.
What did he do to damage it?
He was doing something with a nail gun or a staple gun, and it popped back and hit him in the face.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I thought I had bad luck.
Yeah, wow.
I know, it's miraculous you didn't lose any teeth with your recent bike accident.
I know. I could have bounced my face off the asphalt. That would have been bad news.
Yeah, that's big time luck, Troy. You got to be thanking your lucky stars.
Yes. I'm pretty happy about it.
So, what kind of treatment did you do for this guy? Now I'm curious.
We put an MILF on that number 9. And we're gonna
gotcha.
see if it gets better, or if it doesn't, we'll have to root canal it.
Root canal that baby. All right.
Oh, I did get some bad news regarding my accident today, though. I found out my frame is broken on my bike. So
on your bike?
Ooh.
Well.
So not only do I have to pay for medical bills, I'm gonna have to buy a new bike.
And
you don't have bike insurance?
No. Do you have bike insurance?
No, I don't.
No.
Oh, okay. I was going to say.
I wonder if your homeowner's
I was just going to say, maybe your homeowners covers that.
I don't know. Does my homeowners cover it if I'm in Boise and I'm crashing on bicycles?
I don't know. I don't know. It's good. It's a question to ask your
insurance
agent. Yeah, you bet.
Yeah.
Huh. And you don't buy cheap bikes either, so that sucks.
I might have to
Was it
this
a Huffy?
time. Yeah, Schwinn. Schwinn. Yeah, it's a Schwinn. S-Works Schwinn.
Well, should we get into our topic tonight?
Let's do it. I'm excited.
So, yeah, we're going to talk about some life decisions tonight and kind of where dentistry as a career ranks in those life decisions, where some other aspects of dentistry rank in those life decisions. But let's start off. I'm going to ask you guys this. What do you feel like has been your biggest life decision? Not just career or anything like that. Your biggest life decision up to this point. Troy, I'll start with you.
Man, that's a tough question. My biggest life decision was probably... there's so many of them that I've had to make, and the fact that I'm still alive, I'm really happy about that. I'm still able to make decisions. I don't know, marriage. I would say that was a big decision for me, to marry my wife, even though I really wanted to. But that's a game changer. It's a life changing deal.
Yeah.
So,
Marcus, what about you?
I think marriage is probably right up there at the top. I mean, I'd have to say, that's a really important one, and a lot of other things that have happened in my life have stemmed from the person I chose to marry. From
that's true.
Kids and where we live, and just a lot of things that go on in life happen as a result of a big decision like that. And I think there's other big decisions too. I'm a religious person, a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I chose to go on a mission, and that was a big event, and there were experiences that I had during that were big for me personally. Other people have, I'm sure, other decisions in their lives, not necessarily religious, but lots of different decisions that are really impactful. But there's usually 2 or 3 or a small handful of decisions you can point to, and another one I would say is going to dental school. I mean, here we are on the Dental Realist podcast, and that was a big commitment and a big decision.
Yeah, I agree. So I think, and this is going to blow your minds, I think the biggest decision I made in my life was going to dental school, or probably the best decision. And it probably has nothing to do with dentistry, I would say. I don't know. Well, I mean, first off, I met you guys in dental school. Never would have met you guys if we hadn't gone to dental school together.
It's true.
I believe that's true.
And I met my wife because I went to dental school. Because after dental school, it's kind of a long story, but we got set up on a blind date because I had contacted her dad's office to, see if he was interested in selling it and whatever. And anyway, it resulted in me getting set up on a blind date with my wife and marrying her. So, marriage was probably the biggest decision, but I think dental school is probably something that started that chain of events.
Yeah, a lot of big things came into your life because of that decision.
Yeah.
That's true. The thing, mine, because I was married, it like Marcus said, I think dental school was a big decision there too. But I chose dentistry because I thought it would be a good way to provide for my family. Because of the work schedule, that kind of thing. So because of the values that I have for my family, it kind of made me want a career that was family friendly, and dentistry is very family friendly.
Yeah, and knowing both of your wives like I do, I think they were probably a big part of you guys getting through dental school, because I don't think a lot of spouses would be able to deal with their spouse being gone studying all the time and having to deal with the kids at home. I mean, you guys were gone to school all day and then had to go home and study at night. I mean, that would be rough, I think, on a spouse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had a kid at the time.
And you had a kid,
Marcus,
so did Marcus,
didn't
you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a little challenge when your little son comes up to you and says, "Daddy, can we play?" I says, "No, I got to study for biochemistry." Go talk to your mom.
And then Cats in the Cradle starts playing in the background.
That's
That's right. So yeah, I didn't know my son very well until he was about 6.
Well, tonight we want to talk about, like I said, where some of these decisions in dentistry rank in life's decisions, I guess. So, guys, what do you feel like has been? Let's focus on dental careers now. What do you feel like has been your biggest decision in dentistry after dental school?
For me, and this started around my junior year, I started thinking about, what am I going to do? Do I want to go out and try to become an associate? Do I, specializing, I had written that off probably about the first semester of my first year. So going on and doing something beyond general dentistry was out of the question. But I kind of decided I was going to be a solo dentist, and that's a big decision. I mean, coming out of dental school is, what are you going to do? Are you going to be a solo dentist? Are you going to go do a startup? Are you going to buy somebody out? Are you going to be a partner? Or are you going to work in a corporate office? That's a big decision.
That's a huge decision, and I can remember from day one of dental school, my goal was the same, just to get out of dental school and be a solo dentist, and I wanted to get practicing ASAP. I had no interest in being an associate, really. I had no interest in, joining the corporate dentistry. Wasn't really much of a thing at the time, but I just wanted to be my own boss and own my own practice, and I just knew I could do it, and I was probably wrong on many accounts. But Troy, what about you? What has been your biggest decision as far as your career in dentistry so far?
Yeah, where to practice, because you have kind of in your mind maybe an area where you'd like to go and practice, and then you try and find that place that fits that niche. Make sure your wife or your spouse is happy too. Because I actually was looking for a practice closer back to where we lived, and she told me that if I moved there, that would be the only place in the country that I could go, that I would go alone. so it was a pretty big decision that I had to make so that she would stay with me. But I would say that was a pretty challenging one because, it was weird. I was like you, Ryder. I kind of wanted to be a solo practitioner. I didn't really want to, have a ton of dentists working with me. I wanted to do my own thing. But I ended up finding this partnership and worked as an associate for a year. And then I bought into the practice, bought the senior partner out, and I would not have expected that. It wasn't something that I was looking for. And this area that I found the practice in was not one that I would have really been, doing cartwheels down the aisle, all excited about where to live, because it's not one of those areas where, you got people that want to live here, and a tremendous amount of people. It takes a special person to live in rural Idaho,
Sure does.
So,
you two are both very special.
Yeah, we are special. Marcus and I are special.
Yeah, that is a big decision about where to live, because, you think about where you chose to live and the friends that, you make or your kids might make, and how that can influence them going forward. There's these little decisions along the way, or big decisions, that kind of influence all these other changes in your life. So, pretty big decision on where to live.
And your income in dentistry,
yeah,
can largely be connected to where you choose to practice.
That's true.
If you
too.
want to practice in a place where there's a lot of dentists, you're probably gonna not be. It's just going to be a bigger struggle. But if you're willing to go practice in some place where there's not a lot of dentists and there's a lot of need, you've got a lot bigger opportunity to make a lot more money.
Yeah, so what would you guys suggest to a new dentist getting out of school to pick somewhere they want to live that they will enjoy living, and then make dentistry work for them there, or pick an office where they're going to make a decent income, the income that they want, even though it might not be where they would pick to live, but to make life work for them after that? What would you guys put over the other? If that question wasn't too confusing.
No, that's a great question, because I'll bet you that goes through every single graduate's mind. Personally, looking back, of course, hindsight's always 20/20. I would go with a place where you can make the most money over where you want to live. And the reason I say that is because the amount of debt that you have when you come out of school, and if you're buying a practice and stuff, you're going to need a massive amount of money to pay it back. And the sooner you can pay it back, the better. And another thing, this would be something to consider, would be go somewhere where you're making a lot of money so you can pay your debt off fast, and then sell the practice, whatever you got to do there, or get an associate to work at whatever, and then move to the more desirable location where you could potentially have a little less income. I kind of wish I would have done that a little bit, but times changed on us, and we came out of school, things were still okay with the PPO world. We didn't have a tremendous amount of PPO influence to where right now it's like absolutely destroying the whole profession. So, I would go where maybe that doesn't have as big of an influence, where you can actually practice dentistry and you don't have to worry about insurance dictating treatment.
Yeah.
Or a patient, balking about how much it's going to cost and that kind of stuff. That's my opinion. That's the way I would think about it.
I was going to approach it basically the same way, Troy. I think if you, I think dental school and the cost of dental school has really kind of shifted the way you should look at where you're going to practice when you get out of school. Just because of that debt load. And it's important, like you said, not to think of your career as just this linear thing where I'm going to get out of school and I'm going to do, I have to pick, I'm going to be a solo dentist, and I'm going to be a practice owner, or I'm going to be a corporate dentist. You can shift and go back and forth, but once you lock yourself into practice ownership, that's kind of a tough one to then move out of, especially with the debt load. It's possible, but but anyway, I think you can look at your career as not just necessarily I'm going to be a solo dentist, or I'm going to be a corporate dentist, or I'm going to work in a group practice. You can move in and out of those things if you plan it right, and you make some strategic decisions about where you're practicing and when you're going to do that stuff.
Yeah, and I want to talk more about that, Marcus, because that is interesting. Because if you go to school to be a salesman, or something that's not as specific as dentistry, those people can move from company to company or take different jobs here and there, whatever. Pretty versatile career choices. But with dentistry, it's so specific, you pretty much have to do dentistry. I mean, there's some people that do speaking and, mentoring or, consulting, whatever. But for the most part, a dentist is a dentist. And so we get locked in, and I'm as guilty of this as anybody, into thinking that you own a practice and then that's it. You don't do anything else. But there are options where you could work for corporate dentistry for 5 years. You could work for corporate dentistry until you're 40 years old and then buy a practice. It happens all the time now. Or you can sell your practice at 40 and go work for a corporate office, things like that. So, people do, well, I don't know if people do. I do. I think of dentistry as that linear thing. You get out of school, you buy a practice, you work in that practice for 30 or 40 years, you sell it, and that's it. But dentistry doesn't really have to be like that nowadays, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's moving more and more away from that. And like you're saying too, like I said, hindsight's 2020 because I'm the exact same way as you, Ryder. I had no intentions of ever moving. Once I bought my practice, I says, you know what, I'm not going to move, and I haven't yet. We're 16 years in, and that happens all the time. I'm seeing now more and more entrepreneurial mindset of people who are buying practices up like crazy, and creating a multi practice deal where they'll have associates work their other practices. There's people doing that, people coming out working at corporations, people coming out doing all sorts of stuff. So the only thing I don't see a whole lot of, and it may just be the area that I'm in, is a startup practice. Back in our day, man, startup was not very uncommon at all. There was startups like crazy.
That's what I did. I mean,
you both kind of did that, right?
Heck,
Right.
But nowadays, when was the last time you saw a dental practice just hang a shingle?
Well, I've seen a couple around me that not recently. This was probably just shortly after we got out of school, so maybe 12 years ago or something like that. I've seen a couple in my area that just rented space and started up and did a ton of marketing and stuff, and they seem to be okay. But I'm not positive they're just killing it though. Mm-hmm. I would hesitate to be in. Yeah. I wouldn't trade my position for theirs right now, or anything near theirs. I don't think, but I could be wrong. I just think it would be really tough to do a startup nowadays. At least around where I am. I don't know if it'd be different in other parts of the country, but I got to think that a startup from scratch, unless you had a lot of financial backing, would be pretty difficult.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, to come out with this amount of debt that we have with that and starting a practice. Marcus, you know how much it costs to start up. It's not cheap.
Absolutely.
And then you got, pile your student loans on top of that, and then you have zero patients coming in the door. When you have open the first day, you're hoping you have some people coming in.
And I think that's one of the things that's deceiving in dentistry. I think there's still that mindset that if you want to be a small business owner, go be a dentist. I mean, it's like a guaranteed paycheck. But I really think especially today, if you really want to make the big bucks, if you really want to have the huge success that I think is still potentially there, you've got to be a real genuine entrepreneur. You've got to be a real genuine go-getter, hard charger. I mean, you've got to wear a lot of hats, and you got to wear them really well, and you got to love doing it if you're going to really.
And you got to live in the right location.
Yeah.
You can't just move to anywhere you want and make that happen. I think it depends on a lot of factors, location being key. But you're right, because I mean, we have to wear so many stinking hats now. I didn't know if we had talked, or if you had talked to your father-in-law at all, Ryder, about if he thought that it was easier or harder to do dentistry later in his career as things have progressed and insurances have become more of a problem, and things like that. Because you really have to be, just like Marcus just stated, you have to be an excellent marketer. You have to have excellent interpersonal skills in dentistry. You've got to be able to run your staff like a well-oiled machine. You've got to be able to keep your expenses extremely low nowadays, where the reimbursements are not up to you; they're up to an insurance company. You've got to have this business purring like a kitten, or you won't make any money in dentistry.
And that's not even mentioning doing the dentistry.
Yeah, right. And then you have to be a perfect dentist too.
Yeah, no, I haven't asked my father-in-law about that. I do know that at some point later in his career, I'm trying to think, it may have been in the last probably 10 years. He's been retired for almost 3 years now, but he had seen, I think it was some sort of an EOB that said how much he was getting, or how much, the practice was getting for, like a crown or something like that versus what we billed. And he was like beside himself. He just couldn't believe that we were writing off so much. And, because when he got out until, probably about the time I bought the practice in 2005, he didn't take many PPOs at all, probably less than 5. And so he didn't have a lot of write-offs and stuff. He was getting, pretty much what he was producing, and that has definitely changed. And that's another reason I think a startup would be nearly impossible, because you would have so much startup cost that you'd already be so far behind the 8 ball. And then, like you said, Troy, you've got to run that thing like a fine-tuned machine. And there's not a lot of wiggle room or a lot of money to put towards that debt when you're having to budget so tightly.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's insane.
It's stressing me out just thinking about it right now.
And that's what I experienced, honestly. That's what I experienced when I did a startup in 2003. And so I can't imagine today in 2019, like what that's like.
Yeah. And I bought a practice about 2.5 years after we were out of school. And, I don't think I could have kept my startup going, at least not to the point that I was going to be super successful. But again, I had in my mind that you got out of dental school and you either started a practice or bought a practice, and then you were a solo practitioner, because that's what we'd always been taught. And I kind of wish I had gotten some advice from other people that said, maybe go work for somebody, get your feet wet for a year or two, and see, what dentistry is all about before you try to run a practice. And I think more people should probably do that nowadays. But when we were talking about, where you want to live versus where you want to practice, I had it just in my mind that I wanted to come back to Utah, and that's where my family was. I wasn't married. I like Utah. And so I wanted to come back, and I wanted to practice here. And I was bound and determined to find a practice that was around, in the area I was from. And now I would probably not recommend somebody do that. I think, with technology and how easy it is to travel and everything, you can live a time zone away and still make it feel like you're not that far away from the rest of your family.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I don't know.
No, it does. You have to have some joy in where you live and stuff too. I mean, you can't, you can't live in some place where you're just miserable, but it does have a lot of effect on your income. I mean,
it really
some of these high rollers are talking about pulling in $1 million. It's like, man, I made the wrong decision.
Yeah.
I'm not in the right location for that.
It's true. If you could make $100,000, and you probably have to factor in the cost of living and things like that, but all things being equal, and you could make $100,000 more living in a smaller town somewhere, you might want to take it. But if you're not going to be happy, maybe that's the trade-off. You'll make less to live somewhere you'll be happy. So that is a tough decision getting out of school. And I would tell new dentists to probably not make that decision right when you get out of school. Maybe try working in some different offices or different locations, things like that. But then it's tough to move your family around if you have a family.
Yeah, that's for sure. That makes it a big difference too.
Yeah.
I think for me, part of the reason I chose a solo practice and going that route right out of school and doing a startup was because I was a little bit insecure, to be honest. I wasn't sure that I could really handle working for somebody else and the expectations they'd have for me. I figured if I was on my own, I wouldn't have to deal with somebody else telling me I had to do this or do this procedure and that I wasn't comfortable doing. But on the other hand, what really happened was I didn't have somebody there pushing me and teaching me, so I tended to not do some things that maybe I would have learned and gotten better at and got more comfortable with quicker if I would have just said, you know what, it's gonna be a little tough. having to have somebody else tell me what to do and push me around a little bit. But anyway, that's part of what influenced me personally, was because I just didn't really want to have to deal with somebody else. I'm a little bit introverted that way.
That's a great point, Marcus, because I am the same way. And in dentistry, we have a hard time like calling another dentist to ask each other for help or something. The three of us have a pretty unique situation, it feels like, because we are pretty open about our shortcomings and, what we don't like to do or what we don't know anything about, and we'll ask each other. But if you go into business or go to work for a dentist that, you see him as some old veteran that's been doing this for 20 or 30 years, and I would be worried that he was going to judge me when I don't know how to do something. I just did a crown prep on number 2 and it looks like crap because number 2 sucks. But, you'd have to trust that maybe he would say, or she would say, yeah, those really suck. So you did a pretty good job and got through that. But you could run into the other dentist that is the owner that is a real jerk, and you don't know how to do a root canal on number 3. Well, what kind of dentist are you? Where did you go to dental school? They didn't teach you that, and then you'd feel stupid. That could kill your confidence in your career. So I think if you're going to go work for somebody, finding somebody that your personalities mesh well. Obviously knowing what they expect you to do procedure wise, but. Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Marcus, because I don't think I ever really thought of it that way, but that makes total sense about being a little insecure in your skills getting right out of school.
Huh. Yeah.
Well, didn't Gordon Christensen say that until you've been out for 5 years, you're a safe beginner?
That's probably true. I mean looking back, honestly, that's probably true.
Oh, man, yeah. For sure.
There's stuff that... when I got out of school and I would be like, I don't know how to do this. And now it's just kind of second nature to us. But like when I started working with my father-in-law after I bought his practice and he worked for me for about 12 years, I picked up a lot of things just by being in the office. And, he would tell me, you could try this and see if it works. I've seen this before. And why don't you try this? Why don't you do this with that tooth? And it would probably help it stop hurting. And he didn't do it in a judgmental way. He would just kind of, he's there to help out. And there's a lot of things I think you could pick up from an older dentist just doing things, just working in the same office and, maybe finding some materials that work well. There's also cases where, some of the old ways are better than some of the new ways. Sometimes an amalgam will be better than a huge composite. It might not look as good, but it might last longer and keep the tooth from needing a root canal longer.
Yep.
Mm.
So,
you brought up the amalgam word? Wow.
Sorry about that. You know what?
Yeah. I don't even. Do they teach amalgam in dental school anymore?
I don't know, but I like amalgam. Maybe I'd like a gold foil. I don't know.
We never learned that.
we never learned
gold foil.
But there's nothing finer than a gold crown going in. Those suckers fit well.
But your lab fees are insane.
Lab fees are
nuts. My gosh.
Man,
sorry, I interrupted you there.
No, you're fine. Go.
I wanted a gold crown, and my fee's the same for a ceramic or the other, and I'm like, oh, that ain't gonna happen ever again. When I saw the lab fee on that, I was like, okay, there ain't enough profit in the fee there to make that one profitable. So we're gonna stop doing those right now.
But man, they fit, and you rarely have to adjust them or anything.
They're fantastic.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm a fan of amalgam.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with that.
My father-in-law, he could slap in a quad of amalgams in probably a half hour. He was just, man, he could get them done, and they worked out real well.
Yeah,
so.
And then you'll be crowning them all in the future.
And then probably, but
those snapping cusps.
You see some of those that. I'm sure you guys see them with, half the tooth is amalgam and it's covering replacing a couple of cusps and everything.
Yeah.
And they stay in. Mm-hmm. And then I'll have an occlusal composite and that sucker will come out in a week. I don't know.
I know. I'll be in there trying to take out an old amalgam and it feels like I can't get all the amalgam out. But composite, I'll just make a couple of cuts and it all of a sudden debonds. And
yeah.
I thought that is interesting because, I'm like, are you sure amalgam's not bonding? Because sometimes you core that thing and you're like going, how is this even still in there? Yeah, I've had that happen.
Yeah, I do have. This might be a plug for a dental company, but I use Amalgam Bond from Parkell. That stuff's good. It works well.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, and see, that's something my father-in-law turned me on to, and man, it holds those amalgams in really well. So, yeah.
Amalgamond.
Yeah, pretty nice stuff. Thank you, Parkel. This message is brought to you by Parkel Dental.
There you go. Hey, I thought we weren't doing sponsorships.
That was a free plug.
Okay.
So, and we've talked about this before on some other podcasts, guys, but what do you think would be the right personality to come out of dental school and just go right into solo practice? Say you purchase a practice, just go right into it, versus what type of personality would be one you would recommend to go into maybe an associateship or some kind of corporate dentistry for a few years before you ever choose solo practice, or maybe never choose solo practice?
Wow.
That's a loaded question.
Yeah.
The just guessing. I mean, I would say probably the classic Type A personality, the person who's just super confident in themselves and you know they're willing to take risks and take on anything. I mean, that's probably the kind of person that would really do well as a solo practice owner. Maybe.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that could have its drawbacks too, because if they're too over the top, then people will. People are always skeptical of us anyway. So if you're too up over the top and too confident, sometimes I've seen patients, if I act a certain way, they'll back off.
Yes.
So I don't know. I'm not really a true Type A, but
I'm not a Type A, and I'm definitely not an extrovert. But I think that's the type of person that could really, more of a salesman personality, and also a personality where you don't care if you fail. We've talked, the three of us, like if we put a filling in that falls out in a year, and we're feeling like, oh my gosh, what am I the worst dentist ever? But then there's other people who can, do a root canal, it'll fail in a week, and they're fine extracting it, putting an implant in, and somehow they can convince the patient to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem to
bother them.
Really hurt and bother
them. No, they don't lose a second of sleep, and the three of us are more alike than we aren't, and so I just stress out about it for days and days, and sometimes I'll think of stuff that I did when we were just out of school, and I think, how was I such an idiot? But then you look back and you were, 2 weeks out of dental school. Of course you're an idiot. You don't know how to do all this stuff, but you beat yourself up over it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's hard. For people who take things kind of internally, dentistry is not really a great profession, honestly. I mean, you sit and absorb emotions from your staff, from your patients, from everything. For example, if you diagnose a bunch of cavities on a person, for some reason you start thinking it's your fault somehow that they had the cavities. Yes. And you're just like going, how in the heck is that my fault? I am not at their house. Why do I feel
bad about that? Why do I feel
why do I feel bad about it? It's almost like you told them, they got cancer, they're going to die.
Mm-hmm. And even then it wouldn't be your fault.
Exactly. But for some reason, some of us with our personalities, mine is one of them, I feel terrible telling people bad news, which is absolutely, you have to be very, very comfortable with in dentistry, because that's all you tell people.
It's true. Yeah. There's very few times you give good news in dentistry.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Maybe if you have a deep cavity and you warn the patient that this might turn into a root canal, and then you tell them it didn't, but then you still have to say, well, it could need a root canal in the future.
Yeah. So you can't see the future.
Yeah. It really is, though. You've really got to have that personality that things can roll off your back. So I think coming out of dental school, or even if you're choosing a career in dentistry, you've got to be honest with yourself about your personality, because I saw myself as, kind of like this guy that could handle anything. I can be a business owner. I'm going to, deal with patients and staff, and it's just going to be awesome, and then it'll make a ton of money. And if I had been honest with myself, I would have known that I'm a total introvert. I don't really love that kind of like high volume office lifestyle. I like things a little slower, but I wasn't honest with myself about that, and dentistry's been kind of a shock to my personality sometimes.
Yeah. Do you think that dentistry has molded you some, that you've become a little bit, maybe a little more extroverted, or is it just been a fight?
It's a total fight, and I think I can fake it well sometimes, but I think I feel like I'm at my best when I can just be honest with my patients and talk to them like on a personal level and not have to sell them on dentistry. I'm not a salesman. I can't do that. And I feel like they appreciate that more. And at least that way, if I'm honest with them, and I can sleep at night, even if I'm giving them bad news. But it's still, you guys are probably the same way. It's still mentally exhausting sometimes, all the small talk and things like that. And it doesn't mean like we don't like people or anything like that. It's a lot to have to keep up this. I'm not like a facade, but like this. I don't even know how to put it, but just kind of keep up this personality when it's kind of antagonistic to your true personality.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
so
because and I don't know that you could. It'd be hard to practice truly being introverted. I mean, I don't know how you would do that in dentistry if you really just kind of didn't really communicate with people. I mean, because that's what people want. I mean, like when I go to the doctor, I want them to talk to me and communicate with me. I want to feel that personal connection because it builds confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think just generally that's what we want in someone else. But I don't know how you could just not do that and hope to be truly highly successful in a dental practice.
Yeah, over the top successful. Yeah, I think I've probably talked about this on this podcast before, that I had a patient come in one time, and this was probably when we were within a year out of dental school, and she's like, "That is so nice that you actually talk to us as patients." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" She said, my last dentist or a previous dentist, he would come in and he would sit down, he would do the work, and he would get up and leave. He didn't say, "How you doing?" He didn't say, "Thanks for coming in." Nothing. He would just do the work and go. And he's like, "This is so weird to have a dentist actually talk to you." And, I usually thank my patients for coming in because there's like a million dentists that they could choose. And, I want to know they're appreciated. So but I don't think so, Marcus. I don't think you could do it as a true, introvert and be a successful dentist. You can maybe do it as a sedation dentist or, something else. Maybe you could do it as a neurosurgeon or something. Your patients are always asleep, but I don't know if you could do it as a dentist.
No.
Yeah.
I agree. And you notice the lady wasn't with her other dentist anymore.
Yeah,
she was with you. So that shows you right there. And I think our society, even in the time that we've been practicing, has changed a lot. How many people do you have come in that are actual experts in dentistry because of the internet?
That's true too.
And if you don't have the ability to communicate and to problem solve and to find out what the heck they're even talking about, you really are going to struggle, because they want you to communicate with them and explain to them what's going on because they already know everything. And if you don't tell them what they want, they won't do it anyway.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Have you noticed that? I mean, is that just my practice?
Yeah, and you've got to be confident, even when you're not completely confident. You've got to be confident, and that's a tough thing because sometimes I think I feel guilty because I'm not 100% confident on something.
Yeah,
but I feel like the patient expects me to be confident.
Yep.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. And like Troy said, that you absorb stuff from your staff. You also absorb, or at least you feel these expectations from your patients. They expect a certain level of expertise in dentistry. They expect knowledge and problem solving. That's a good one. I hadn't thought of that. They expect all of these things from you, and they want you to be a nice person, and they want you to make a restoration that's never going to fail. So it is a heavy burden on a dentist.
No
Sometimes
pressure.
I feel no pressure at all.
Yeah, because I paid $30 for that filling. It should last forever.
Forever.
Yeah, and I don't have to brush and floss.
Not
I
once.
mean, my gosh, we pay $2,000 for an Apple MacBook Pro, and we expect that thing to last 5-7 years.
Yeah.
But you spend $30 in your copay on your filling, and you want that to last forever.
And you use
in a much harsher,
much
harsher environment.
Yeah.
So that's a good point you guys just brought up, because this last week Terry had a patient that was talking about how fillings are, how can they possibly wear out or something, and he likened it to like a used car. Says, you buy a $50,000 car, you drive it off the lot, it's worth about half that because it's used. He says, soon as you leave this office and take the first bite on this food, that filling is used. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I go, that's a
very
good
true.
point. I go, that's a good point because, people beat the tar out of their teeth.
Yeah. And then we have those expectations, like if a crown breaks in 2 years, well, we didn't, it doesn't mean you made a subpar crown or anything. It just, stuff happens. And,
The material failed.
And how many patients do we get that, you put a crown on a tooth and then I usually warn them, you got to keep this brushed and flossed just like a normal tooth. It can break. It'll have to be replaced at some point. And sometimes they're like confused, like, wait, I can get a cavity on this and I might have to replace this within 5 to 10 years. Yeah, you can. So I don't know what dentist set the standard that nothing in dentistry ever fails, but I get a lot of those patients that still expect perfection forever.
Yeah.
People upgrade their phones yearly.
Right.
People trade in their cars and get a new car every 3-5 years.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah. I don't know. So communication is huge with dentistry and dental patients. And, being a solo practice owner, you've got to wear all those hats. You've got to deal with the staff. You've got to deal with the patients. You got to deal with all that. So, getting out of dentistry and maybe working in a corporate office where you have a lot of infrastructure and support and people that do all these other jobs and you can just do the dentistry, sometimes that's not a bad way to go. Or, go work as an associate for a veteran dentist that has a lot of years under their belt, then that might be a good option too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Especially more and more in today, just the way things are.
Yeah, people just expect so much. It's insane. Everything is expected to just be cheap, fast, quick. They want it now.
Yeah.
That patient that walks in, it's an emergency patient, and they want you to disregard everybody else that's in the office and just see them. That happens too often. It's like, well, why can't he get me in right now? Well, because he's got 50,000 other people in the chair
true.
right now. Yeah.
It's true. And you do feel some stress with that too. I mean, you almost feel like you're letting the patient down, and you're not. If you look at it from an outside perspective, it's not you, but we still put that on ourselves.
Yep.
So.
It's insane. The expectations are too high. And that's the thing that makes dentistry so stressful, because I don't think that, like you're saying, like your father-in-law back in the day in the 80s and the 90s, they didn't have the stresses. It didn't seem like the expectations were as high, it seemed,
Right.
I mean, people just weren't as uptight as they are now. People are so uptight.
Well, I have a funny story about that. My father-in-law had made a set of dentures for a guy, and I think it was somebody that lived in his neighborhood. And he said, I just couldn't get, the guy kept complaining about him, couldn't get him right, something. And he said, he came in one day and he said, those don't fit. What are you going to do about it? And my father-in-law put his hand out. He said, let me see those. Took him, put him in his hand. He said, I threw him in the garbage, and I said, get out of my office. And he said, he just caught me on the wrong day. And I just
Wow.
thought, how many times do you want to do that? Like, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do. Just get out of my office. Mm-hmm. But it's like you can't do that because with the internet, word might spread or, they might tell.
One Yelp review, and then you go, oh, great, here we go.
Here we go.
Even though you're perfectly justified.
Yeah. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I want to say that like every day. And it's usually with denture patients. So... that's one example of how things have changed. We need to get him on this show sometime to have him tell some stories. He's got some good
curious.
Ones. Yeah,
just to see the differences between then and now. Because he graduated like 40 years ago or something.
73 or 74. I can't remember.
I was 3.
I think 75. I was not born yet. I think 74. He practiced for 42 years, so he's probably got several good stories.
Yeah.
So
that's crazy, but
interesting.
Crazy times we live in now, and so you do have to take that into consideration for where you want to practice and how you want to practice. There's a lot of variables out there nowadays, where it seemed to be so much simpler. Even when we came out, I didn't feel the stress that I feel now.
Yeah. No, we had hope then. That's been sucked out of us now. That's not true.
You know, you brought up a point and we didn't really touch on too much earlier, Ryder, was the fact that dentistry, one of the problems with being a dentist and having a dental degree is you're so specific.
Yeah.
You know, you can change offices, you can be an associate, you can be, you know, an owner of a practice, you can, you know, be a solo owner, you can be a partnership, you can, whatever, but you still have to be a dentist because we're so specific. You know, it's not like getting a master's degree in business administration where you can branch out, you know, and work in accounting or work in, you know, retail or whatever it is. Dentistry, you're stuck.
Yeah. And
they bury you so far in debt you really can't get out, you know, and not at least in the short term.
It's true. And, you know, I think it was you that said something, or maybe it was Marcus earlier that said something about, you know, working in a practice and then selling it and then moving on to another practice. Sometimes I wonder if that's not the right way to go. You know, every time you change jobs, it feels like you get more motivation to do well at that job. So if you, you know, keep motivation for 5 years working as an associate, then you go work for a corporate office and you go buy a practice and sell that. I mean, maybe change is something that would really motivate you, but my personality isn't one that I would want to do a lot of moving around and uproot my family. Some people are okay with that and they like these new adventures, but I don't know that you could do that by staying in one area and just working at several different offices over time.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't ventured out that way myself.
Yeah.
I honestly do think that change sometimes is for the better. But yes, I will say that dentistry has made me so darn risk averse that I just have not ventured out. I've still kind of stuck to my old, you know, I got to stay in this practice till I retire and then sell it and then I'll be fine, you know. And I'm not so sure that that's the right way to go. I think I'm stuck in a rut here that I gotta either, you know, get more risk averse or just change something and cross my fingers and hope it works.
Well, yeah, because there's some people that have the personality that they're willing to try like risky things, you know, like I'll just put an implant in there. If it fails, it fails. I mean, we've heard people say that. I couldn't do that. I also am not one that would take out a bunch of money to put into some new venture that may or may not be successful. I can't do that. And some people have a better personality for that. Yeah. Well, do you guys have any other words of wisdom to add before we wrap it up?
I think we got to hold some back so we can have more podcasts.
We've got to have another episode, right? Yes.
You bet we do. We gotta go decompress. And
we're on a roll. I think this is 2 weeks. Didn't we do it 2 weeks ago? So
about 2 weeks ago, we're gonna keep this train rolling.
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
We got to make it more consistent. If I'd quit going in the hospital, it would be great.
It's nice to have you in a hospital bed, Troy. We can nail you down to get you podcast more often.
Nothing else to do.
You just have the podcast with us.
Yes.
So, all right. Well, Marcus, do you want to tell everybody where to find us?
Yep. We appreciate you listening to our podcast. You can reach out and contact us at dentalrealist@gmail.com. You can also find us on Twitter. I almost said tweener. I don't even know what that is.
That's a different website.
Tweet.
You can find us on Twitter at Dental Realist. You can also find us on Facebook. We do have a couple of books, So You Want to Be a Dentist and So Now You're a Dentist, both available in digital copy. We'd love for you to take a look at those. And again, we really appreciate you listening to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for joining us tonight. This has been episode 38, and we will see you soon on episode 39. Thanks.